Welcome to a play-by-play review. I'm your host, Henry, and it's finally time to go back to a galaxy far, far away. Actually, I don't remember the last time I did anything Star Wars related on this podcast specifically. I've done some YouTube videos on it, but yeah, we're going back to do some more Star Wars, talking about Thrawn again. So this is kind of like 6 months after I did the Imperial trilogy, the Thrawn trilogy, since I finished that up back in December. I have now finished the Ascendancy Trilogy. I actually started that back in late April. I'm looking at my notes because I take notes of all the stories that I have gone through. I can actually kind of read through what I did. So I finished Thrawn Treason back on December 16th. So halfway through the last month of 2025. After that, I did the Hand of Thrawn duology because I didn't really want to go directly into the Ascendancy trilogy. I just wasn't really feeling it, and I wanted to do something else. Although I stuck with Timothy Zahn, funnily enough, and I did the Hand of Thrawn duology, which I have spoken about at least on my YouTube channel. It is Henry the Host. It is all one word. You can find this podcast there. That's something else you can do. I posted my review of The Mandalorian and Grogu when that came out. Doing a lot of baseball stuff there. Stream the Orioles every Friday. Do gaming every Thursday. Doing Final Fantasy VII Remake at the moment on there as well. But yeah, I did Hand of Thrawn duology, which is good. I liked it a lot. Vision of the Future, the second one of the two, is really, really, really long. It's like 500 something pages, and like I think it's 26 hours for the audiobook. It's kind of insane. But it was good. I liked the story. After that, I briefly did the Hammer Tong short story, also by Timothy Zahn, which kind of sort of, it includes some characters that show up in the Hand of Thrawn duology. But it was a fun one that I knocked down a day. But after that, I did, in between Hammer Tong and Vision of the Future, I actually did Hell's Reach, which is Warhammer 40k book, which is pretty solid. And then I gone back to Star Wars. So after that, I did Razor's Edge, which is a Princess Leia centered novel, which is pretty solid. The plot was kind of whatever, but the Leia and Han moments in that book were very fun. After that, I did Battlefront Twilight Company, which is a canon novel, and it's fine. It's a different perspective because you're following like just soldiers. The whole thing follows a group of rebel soldiers, kind of from like basically up to the Battle of Hoth, and then a little bit after. It ties into Battlefront 2015, sort of. EA's Battlefront 2015, because the Battle of Sullust is the thing that happens at the end. And Sullust is like kind of a big deal in that game. Like the box art has the battle being taken place on Sullust. But there's no story mode in that game because that game was really shallow in terms of content. But anyway, that was pretty fun. And that I wound up doing a tier list on my YouTube channel of all the Star Wars books up to that point. And bet with Twilight Company being the most recent one that I'd done up to then. So you can go find that as well. After that, I did the 2 Clone Wars Gambit books, Stealth and Siege, and those were interesting. I don't know if I like them, if I'm being honest. I like parts of them. I like the moments with Anakin and Obi-Wan in those, and I know this is kind of turning into a review of like a bunch of stuff, but I swear I'll get to the Ascendancy trilogy. But yeah, I like the Anakin and Obi-Wan moments in those books. I did not like how sadistic Lock Durd was in those. Like, he was a little too over the top. In my liking, it just kind of got redundant and a little hard to listen to since I'm doing the audiobook. Because it's like, I can deal with, torture and whatnot, and the form of reading, not in real life, should specify. I can deal with like reading about, torture in like a fictional setting. It is what it is. It's a part of the story. It's just, it happens like 20 times, it feels like, over the course of those 2 books of this poor doctor. She's like just getting psychologically tortured and physically tortured. Well, more just beaten up occasionally by Lock Turret, who just despises her, but needs her to like build a bioweapon pretty much. And it's just like, we've seen the story. We don't need to see this for the like 15th time in the span of like 2 chapters. Can we move on, please? Anyway, again, this is turning into something entirely different, but yeah, I got through those 2. Then I did Catalyst Rogue One novel, which is sort of like a prequel novelization to Rogue One, mostly following Galen and Lyra Erso, so Jyn Erso's parents, and then also Orson Krennic. That one's also, it was written by the same guy who did Battlefront Twilight Company, I believe, and it's there's really not much going in. It's a big old ball of not much, really. It felt like it could have been a short story with the plot that I was trying to construe. It gives a lot of characterization to Galen and Lyra. It's just kind of ironic that Lyra shows up for a scene in the actual movie, and it's the opening scene where she just dies. And then Galen is there for like maybe 3 other scenes, and he basically just dies. It's not the best, I'll just say that. But after that, I got to the Ascendancy Trilogy, which I will finally be talking about. I started book 1, Chaos Rising, April 21st to May 9th. Book 2 was Greater Good, May 9th to May 26th. And then Lesser Evil, book 3, May 26th to June 16th. Lesser Evil's pretty long, but I actually got through that in pretty good time. And I'm now currently on the Revenge of the Sith novelization, which is very, very fun. I feel like it's tapered off a little bit compared to like the high that it starts on, because I swear this is the last non-Ascendancy Trilogy book I'm talking about. But just to briefly touch on the novelization, because it's I have enjoyed it so far. But the opening, the like prologue in a sense, the like opening couple paragraphs, as it like building up to basically what happens at the start of the movie, where with the Battle of Coruscant and like Anakin and Obi-Wan flying in their 2 starfighters over and like across the Venator into the battle. It's basically the prelude to that. The preamble is so unbelievably well crafted. It gets you so hype. I'm not going to quote it because it's long, and B, I don't remember all of it, but it's basically the end of it is like, this may be the age of heroes, or this may be the end of the age of heroes, but it saved its best for last. And it's just like, it's so good. It's so good. You don't even have to read the rest of the novelization. Just read up through that like preamble section, and then just like go watch Revenge of the Sith or something. I don't know. It's just fantastic. But anyway, to the actual books that I'm going to be talking about, the Ascendancy Trilogy. So these are prequels, in a sense, to the Imperial Trilogy, starring Thrawn. These are his origin story books, essentially. It's how he got from nowhere, pretty much. Well, got from a small family in not really a backwater plan, but like not basically from irrelevance to eventually the planet that he was on, where he would be found by Voss Park and Eli Vanto at the start of Thrawn 2018. And his rise and eventual fall, sort of, in the Chiss Ascendancy. And they're very fun. This is, I think, the first time that Timothy Zahn, the author, and really anyone, has been able to really dig in deep to the society of the Chiss, since the Chiss have obviously been a thing, but technically, since Thrawn's introduction in the Heir to the Empire trilogy back in 1991 or whenever it came out, or 93, whatever, whenever Heir to the Empire came out. But Chiss society as a whole, we've seen very little. I feel like the most we've seen of it, maybe in, I'm just blanking on the name, Outbound Flight. There we go. The prequel book in Legends about Thrawn that Timothy Zahn wrote, that and Survivor's Quest, but Survivor's Quest takes place after actually the Hand of Thrawn duology, though it ties into stuff that happens in Outbound Flight. And the Ascendancy Trilogy takes a few things from the Outbound Flight story. I know that, even if I have not read Outbound Flight yet. But I don't think we saw too much of the actual Chiss society in Outbound Flight. Definitely not to the level that we do in the Ascendancy Trilogy, because it basically takes place through, like, all three books takes place in the Chiss Ascendancy. Like, Thrawn will go occasionally to other planets, but for the most part, we're getting a good look at Chiss society, and it is flawed. I'll just say that. Also, very xenophobic. They don't hate other species. They just like they're kind of considers themselves like just better than others, and also like will go out of their way to not get involved with other species, even when morally it's probably a good idea to do so. They're basically like staunch isolationists while also being kind of expansionary. Like the part of the military that Thrawn is in during these is the expansionary defense fleet, which I just find is a really funny, like, contradictory name, where it's like there's a very big underlying rule in, well, the Chiss Ascendancy, but that resonates throughout all three of these novels, and it is the fact that the Chiss cannot intervene in another species conflict unless they are directly fired upon, pretty much. Like, they cannot act unless acted upon, is kind of how it boils down to. Much to the annoyance of Thrawn. He does not like this. He's very much a preemptive strike kind of guy. If threats are on the horizon, because his whole thing is that he wants to protect the Ascendancy in whatever means possible, even if it means pissing off the entire aristocracy and just pissing off everyone, which he tends to do a lot. He's very good at pushing buttons of the politicians in the Chiss, since they are pretty rooted in their current dogma, like their current isolationist, but also we're gonna like expand our borders and stuff out into more of the chaos, which is what they call their area of the unknown regions. So it's, again, Chiss society. They're also very family segmented, so that they're broken up into various families. The first name of any Chiss the first part of any Chiss name is their family name. So Thrawn, his full name is Mithron Urodo. The myth part, which is before the apostrophe, and Timothy Zahn is a guy who loves apostrophes. The dude will make, at any chance he gets to create a new character, he will put an apostrophe in there. I don't know why, he just loves making characters with apostrophes in their names. So it's like when I bet his eyes are like lighting up when he's like, I can make a whole like a whole society based on characters with apostrophes in their names. This is amazing. But Thrawn's like first part of his name before the first apostrophe of the two in his name is Mith, Mitth. That is a family, one of the 9 ruling families of the Chiss Ascendancy. They're like kind of the top brass, so to speak. Below them is the 40. I think they're usually just called the 40, but it's like 40 other families that are high up, but not quite to the level. Like, I'm trying to think of like a real world equivalent to this. Nothing's coming to my head for some reason. I feel like there's something pretty obvious, but it's kind of how the Ascendancy is broken up politically. And when I say family, it's not just like, there's a dad and a mom and like all their kids. It is much bigger than that. Like, they're ruled by a patriarch, though by now at this point, the patriarch does not have to be a man, despite the Latin origin. It can be a man or a woman. There are multiple female patriarchs that are shown throughout the story. And there's also, I think Zahn was pretty insistent on using a lot of Latin terms at various points in Chiss society. Like their data pad essentially, or their like tablet, is a questus, which is like, I don't know if it's exactly the same thing that like Romans used back in the day. I don't know if that's like what they called their own tablets, but it definitely feels like a Latin type of term, so if you're a fan of Latin, I took Latin in high school, so I got a kick out of that a little bit. But anyway, Chiss society, it's the families are like they're broad. Like, you can be adopted into them. There's like different levels and stuff. Thrawn winds up getting kind of like plucked out of his little academy on Rentor, was the planet, by member of the Myth family and also the Supreme General of the Chiss military, General Bakif. He's awesome. Love Bakif. And then the Chiss aristocrat, whose name is Thurfian, Myth Thurfian something or whatever. I don't remember his full name, but Thurfian is not a nice guy. I'll just say that. He despises Thrawn. He's kind of the overarching villain within the Chiss for the story. He's not evil because he's also wanting to try and protect the Ascendancy. His whole thing is that he's more doing it from the status quo rather than Thrawn's more unorthodox methods, or not conforming to standards and rules and stuff that what Thrawn does. And that's why Thurfian hates him, is because Thrawn is a wild card, and Thurfian views Thrawn as more of a threat to the Ascendancy than and someone who can help the Ascendancy. Though he's does more to try and hinder Thrawn from the shadows, and even then he's not usually that successful, because it's pretty funny. So I'm kind of bouncing around all over the place rather than just kind of going book by book, and I think that's kind of what I'm going to keep doing a little bit. I might go more into the book by book stories. I don't know if I want to just summarize all of them, because you should go read them. They're very fun. So I'm just going to I'm doing what I usually do and free form rambling, because I don't have a script in front of me right now. But anyway, Thurfian has an ally in a guy named Zistalmu, who's part of the Irizi family. So it's Irizi Stalmu something or whatever. But the Irizi is another one of the 9. They are actually rivals of the Myth, since the family dynamics is a lot of them have rivalries and alliances. So they're not the Chiss ruling council is not exactly unified. It's a lot of family politics. The family politics is a thing that gets repeated a lot in the story, and not in a good way. A lot of characters who, especially in the military, which is supposed to be pretty much separated from the aristocra, which is or the syndicure, that's what it is, which is the political branch. And the syndicure is the politics, so it's all the ruling families and stuff. The aristocrat are the politicians, pretty much. That's one of the higher ranks of politicians, with Thurfian starting out as an aristocrat, same with Zistalmu. And then meanwhile, the military is, for the most part, so the expansionary defense fleet, at least, which Thrawn is part of, that is separated. They don't really take orders from the syndicure, though they can kind of be influenced by them. They're not supposed to, but it does happen. And so it's a lot of times they kind of butt heads. And it's one of the many flaws of the Chiss Ascendancies. It's shown that it's not perfect, as they do kind of don't like each other all that much, the syndicure and the military. But anyway, I was talking about Thurfian and Zistalmu. So they are members of rival families as politicians, but they come together more in the first 2 novels, rather than the third one, as their positions grow and their relationship kind of gets strained a little bit due to the circumstances of their positions. But they come together with the mutual, basically because they both don't like Thrawn, for the the whole reason of him being a wild card, and they view him as a threat to the Ascendancy and whatnot. And so it's they're always trying to scheme in the back rooms of everything, trying to bring down Thrawn, of oh, what can we do to what kind of backwater mission can we send Thrawn on to get him out of the way of the Ascendancy, and surely he'll mess up this time. And then Thrawn, being Thrawn, just he's oh yeah, by the way, I brought back this cool piece of tech that we can use. It's called a gravity well generator. It's pretty cool, right? Am I right? And the entire syndicate is oh my god, Thrawn, you're so cool. And then Thurfian and Zistalmu are just in the back screaming. It's this is not what was supposed to happen. This happens 4 times over the course of the trilogy. It's great, because it's and Thrawn doesn't even realize that they're trying to scheme against him. He's just he just goes out there, does his job, and wins. And it's the same thing. I mentioned this, I'm pretty sure, in my Imperial Trilogy ramble, but Thrawn doesn't really lose ever in this trilogy. He missteps maybe once, and that was more in a flashback in the first novel, and even then it turns out to be okay in the end. It's interesting that this whole trilogy is following the main character who does not lose. He basically knows everything when it comes to what's going to happen in the plot, because he's mostly fighting military battles. It is made a very distinct point that he has no idea how to do anything involving politics, and that is where some of the conflict shows up. But this isn't a story of the hero like trying and failing and learning from his mistakes and trying to be better and grow himself and evolve into a better person, like a proper character arc. That's not what we have here. This is just Thrawn being Thrawn, which everyone wants because everyone loves Thrawn. Well, not everyone, but it's the generalization is that he's a very popular character, and what is loved about him is his competency and his ability to win military engagements and kind of almost get turned into this like Sherlock Holmes detective level type of person when dealing with anything military or war related. And that's more of what we see here. I mean, we definitely get a decent bit of characterization of Thrawn, which is cool. Like we see more of his motivations and how he acts outside of just, a military setting and outside of just talking with either, fellow officers or say an enemy like Luke Skywalker in the Heir to the Empire trilogy, or, like a protege like Eli Vanto. Like he has various different dynamics with a lot of the major characters, the supporting cast, which includes Admiral Ar'alani, who I'll get to in a minute because she's great in these. I love her in these. She's so much fun. But his second in command, Mid Captain Smacro, who's a very fun contrast where he's more in wants to follow orders and not buck the trend that Thrawn does all the time, but he's also very much loyal to the chain of command and the Chiss Ascendancy. And while he initially doesn't like Thrawn for everything that Thrawn does and how Thrawn operates, he grows to respect Thrawn a lot and understands the method to the madness pretty much. Smacker is a great character. But then you get Thalius and Cheery. So Thalius is caretaker to Cheery. So Cheery is a Skywalker. She's 9 years old, I think. But the concept of Skywalker was introduced in the Imperial trilogy, where it's the navigators for the Chiss, essentially, because they don't have navicomputers. They instead have girls who are force sensitive. Basically, there's some Chiss girls are born with the ability, they call it third sight. It's a connection to the Force, pretty much, that allows them to kind of sense danger. So with the chaos where where the Ascendancy is in, it's not just regular space. There's a lot of spatial anomalies and whatnot, and basically the roads around the Ascendancy and outside of it are ever changing. And so there's driving to your friend's house one day, well, the road might be completely different the next day. And, you might be driving along and suddenly there's going to be a boulder that just randomly pops up. Well, in this case, there's going to be a black hole that randomly pops up as you're trying to fly through hyperspace. That's why Skywalkers exist, because they'll go into their trance and whatnot as the ship goes through hyperspace. And they're like, oh, hey, there's going to be a planet that's going to pop out of nowhere. Let's not run into that and stop here and then make a turn. That's kind of the gist of it. And then it's basically that Skywalkers kind of lose their ability or their connection to the Force, or at least to the level that they can't, navigate anymore by the time they hit 14 years old. That happened to Thalius. Thalius met Thrawn when Thrawn was a junior officer. And right when she was starting to lose her third sight, and she was like, I have no idea what I want to do with my life. I'm very sad now. And Thrawn basically just kind of gave her a little thing. Is don't be sad. You have so many things to do. I forget exactly what he tells her, but he basically gives her a little bit of advice that he doesn't even realize basically just changes Thalius's life for the better. And she's just immediately is I need to thank Thrawn and, do everything I can to pay him back. If this were an anime, they always be calling him Thrawn Senpai, pretty much is what I got from that. But she winds up coming back onto Thrawn's ship, the Springhawk, to act as the caretaker for Cheery, who's the Springhawk's current Skywalker, but mostly so she can just be with, just be near Thrawn. Like she just wants to see him again, not even like do anything. She just kind of wants to be there. And she does. And she's a great character, as well. She's very independent, and like very, fierce, and when she wants to be, very protective of Chewie, very appreciative of Thrawn, and kind of acts as like one of his, definitely one of his closest allies. And she's like, I don't want to go too much into spoiler territory because I don't want to spoil too much about this. But she's got a fun sequence over the trilogy, with Chewie as well being fun too, as Thrawn kind of just adopts her as like his own child at one point. Like it's funny where Skywalkers are like the most protected people of anyone in the Ascendancy, because the Chiss like really heavily protect the secrecy of the Skywalkers and like what they're able to do. Cause like not even most of the general public really knows what Skywalkers really do. And also like anyone outside the Ascendancy, it just has no idea that Skywalkers even exist. So Thrawn is like pretty protective of Chewie, and he winds up just like taking her with him, like just with him, not even on the Springhawk. He just takes her in like a shuttle off to lesser space, which is just the known galaxy in regular Star Wars, basically just the actual galaxy, to go on like a 5-week excursion during the later half of Chaos Rising, the first book. And like that just makes everyone really upset, and it's really funny. And it's also where the book intercepts with Thrawn Alliances, the second book in the Imperial trilogy, since that's where Thrawn meets with Anakin and Padme during that whole sequence there. So we get a brief kind of like different perspective of the first meeting between Thrawn and Anakin, where in Alliances we get the meeting in like outside of Batu from Anakin's perspective pretty much, whereas this time that one is in Thrawn Alliances. In Chaos Rising, the meeting is instead from Thrawn and Chewie's perspective, which is pretty neat. We don't get anything else from the Alliance's story. Like all the action that Thrawn gets up to is not shown, but it's like it kind of frames when it happens in relation, like when Alliances happens in relation to the Ascendancy Trilogy, which is pretty neat. And Chewie does go very close to Thrawn because he like teaches her how to fly and whatnot, and like to be more independent also as well. So like Thalius and Chewie are like Thrawn's biggest supporters. They're his strongest soldiers pretty much. It's great. And then I think it was them, Smackro, and then Arlani. And I will talk about Arlani now because she is very fun. So Admiral Arlani was introduced reintroduced. I think she was technically named at some point in Legends, though not really a character. But she was introduced properly in canon in Thrawn Trees. Well, technically she was in Thrawn 2018 when Thrawn, the character Thrawn, not the book Thrawn. But at the end of it, when Thrawn sends Eli over to the Ascendancy, basically just sending him away from the Empire to the Ascendancy, because he views Eli as a very good officer and wants him to serve the Ascendancy to help them out as like a different perspective. Vanto at the end of it, like in the epilogue, pretty much meets with Arlani and is basically like, hey, I'm here. I'm looking for the Chiss. And Arlani's like, I am the Chiss. You can come here now. You will serve me as an officer on my ship. And then we don't see them for a book because they don't show up in Alliances at all. Then they show up properly. Well, Eli shows back up, and then Arlani shows up for the first time properly in Treason. And she's a decent character in that one. Like she doesn't have a ton of characterization. Is kind of what I was saying, or what I was trying to say. She's like more what she's trying to do. Like she's hunting Grisks in that one, and it's more her and Eli and Thrawn. Like they tend to more talk about the mission and whatnot rather than what eventually gets expanded on in the Ascendancy Trilogy of Arlani and Thrawn's past. So we don't see a ton of Arlani, her character in Treason, at least compared to the Ascendancy Trilogy. And it makes sense. You have a whole trilogy to build on Arlani, and it's a bit more focused on her rather than like everything else going on in Treason. But Arlani is a very fun character, very interesting character, where she is also like a highly competent officer, like really, really competent. Like if Thrawn wasn't there, she'd probably be the best of the best in the Chiss. It's just that Thrawn is kind of a cheat code when it comes to military tactics and stuff. Arlani's like, she's really good. She's just not Thrawn, who, yeah, again, is a cheat code. But we get like a look at her in Thrawn's or the flashback sections in the first book, where like she's also a kind of a junior officer, or like not necessarily cadet, but like she and Thrawn kind of first meet in an academy together, where Thrawn's like gets in trouble for kind of basically just beating the simulation system when he wasn't supposed to, and Arlani kind of bails him out with some skilled observation, pretty much, and they kind of become friends after that. Arlani's like, this Thrawn guy is actually kind of smart. I'm gonna keep an eye on him. And then they have like it's a really funny chapter where like Arlani's basically flirting with Thrawn for like a good bit, and Thrawn's like not really reciprocating in any way because he doesn't really understand romance all that well. And like Arlani's not like, flirting or like romantically, but there's definitely some sexual tension between them. But eventually they kind of like it gets resolved, not necessarily, not in like actual, romantic resolution, but like it gets resolved pretty much, is the best way I can describe it. From what I remember, and like they have like a sparring session where like Thrawn basically shows off like how he sees things, and like how like he can observe someone's like fighting style based on what they are and like how they think, and how they act and all that, and like artwork and all that. Like Thrawn also takes Arlani to an art museum, and like he shows her a bunch of artwork and is like, I can tell you everything about the culture because I can understand their art and whatnot. And the classic Thrawn, like I read I looked at a piece of painting. Now I know exactly how your entire species operates to the minute detail. And Arlani's like, dang, that's actually pretty cool. Like it takes her a bit to get like won over because she's very skeptical about it. But like once she sees like, oh wow, this is actually like really impressive, I should be friends with this guy because he can be a pretty good officer. And eventually Thrawn basically serves under Arlani for like the first part of his career as like one of her junior officers when she's a senior captain at that point, I think, before she becomes a flag officer. But anyway, Arlani, like after she becomes a flag officer, and basically renounces her family name. So she starts off as Arisi Arlani. So she's known initially as Ziara, since that's like her core name, which is like the inside part, like, how Thrawn is Thrawn, his full name is Mithron Urodo, but we call him Thrawn because that's like the initial or like the middle part, of his name. Same with Arlani, where like her full original name was Arisi Arlani. She was part of the Arisi family. And so she was called Ziara. But eventually when she makes flag officer, when she makes Commodore, at that point, then eventually gets promoted to Admiral by the time we see her during the story proper, like the non-flashback sections. She has basically removed her family name as is required. So it's basically all the flag officers are serving the Ascendancy itself rather than a family. So that's why she chops off the Arisi part and just becomes known as Arlani. And that's what we know her as today. And Arlani's pretty cool, but she's definitely a like follows the rules and is like very much a defender of the Ascendancy, whatnot. Not quite the preemptive strike type of guy girl in this case, that Thrawn is, but yeah, she's willing to bend the rules on occasion if it is really necessary. She also despises family politics and just does not care for them at all. There's a point in the third book where it's like the Chiss are like getting close to a civil war, and there's like two families have like a bunch of transport ships that are like starting to shoot at each other because like the tensions are getting really high. And then Arlani shows up because she's been relegated to patrol duty inside the Chiss Ascendancy itself because of various circumstances. Not her fault. It was just like various manipulations from Jixtus, the main antagonist of the trilogy, and all that. And she just basically shows up to this like skirmish and is like, if you do not stop, I will shoot all of you with my plasma spheres, which are basically just like ion cannon. They disable electronics, and like all the captains are like, if you do that, the Syndicate is gonna get real mad at you because you're messing with family politics. And Arlani's like, I could care less right now. You all need to stop. And then they don't stop, and then she just shoots them all. And then the Syndicate gets really mad at her, and she's like, I don't care. It's great. Arlani's so much fun. She's also, funnily enough, she's kind of a comedian at points. Like she has a sense of humor that shows up at like the worst possible time. She like loves to make jokes at like really serious and like really inopportune moments. It's really funny. Like she'll just try and lighten the mood on occasion when things get like really tense, and like it never works, and it's so funny. I love her for it. It's like she's in like deep in this like top secret prison interrogating one of the villains in the third book from the first book, and like she goes like after her interrogation, she goes back to Bakif and like all the people in there, and she's like talking with Bakif and like all the big information that they got out of him, and you know it's all super serious, and then she just tries to like just lighten the mood with like a really poorly timed joke, and everyone's just giving her the side eye, and she's like, yeah, that was my bad. Sorry guys. It's really funny that like, because it happens multiple times. I don't know why Zahn wrote her like that, but I fully support the fact that she has a failed comedy career. Pretty much, it's great, and it's really funny too because her second in command, Wutro, she's very much the laid back, like willing to crack a joke all the time. And I guess Arlani's trying to like play off of that, but Arlani's like a bit too wound up and like too serious a lot of the time that she just like it just doesn't work a lot. Like there's definitely some times where Arlani's like her jokes do land, usually when she's talking with Wutro, but it's a lot of the time she's just like just missing shots all the time with her jokes, and it's great. I love her. She's one of my favorite characters in the Ascendancy Trilogy. I'm a big fan. I mean, Thrawn also, he's great, but Arlani is very fun. And I guess I'll talk a little bit about the books in more specifically. So Chaos Rising is more of an isolated story, though it does set up at points stuff later on down the line. It's broken up into both, all three of them are kind of broken up into current day chapters and then flashbacks known as memories. The first one is a lot of the flashbacks are about Thrawn's kind of early days in the Ascendancy, like as an officer and whatnot, and kind of like, you know, him meeting with Arlani and becoming friends with her and like serving under Arlani, and kind of some of the mistakes he does make, and learning like how his method of doing things doesn't exactly mesh well with the Chiss way of doing things, so to speak. And that kind of does mess up some parts here and there, but also does gain him some allies over the course of the trilogy. And it's interesting. It does break up the pacing at points, but it's not too bad. And the overarching plot thread of Chaos Rising is pretty solid, where it's like there's a bit of a conspiracy going on of like, you know, some unknown enemy has attacked the Chiss and they got to figure out who it is, and Thrawn is one of the many who are kind of dispatched to figure it out. Same with Arlani, and Thrawn's able to obviously figure it out, but he just kind of does his own thing of actually uncovering the plot, so to speak, much to the annoyance of the Syndicate, before he eventually is able to win. And you know, then the Syndicate just kind of loves him for it. I was about to say like how he kind of defeats General Yiv, the main villain of the first book, but I'm gonna save that because it's really funny. I might make a YouTube short about it, because it's kind of crazy. So I won't spoil that here. It is pretty crazy though. But book 2, I think, is the weakest of the three. Greater Good. It's just a little slow. And I get what Zahn was going for, where the new antagonist, Hapleaf, of the Agbui, his species, the Agbui, that are like telepaths when they can touch people. He's trying to like basically undermine the Chiss and like create subterfuge within by doing a bunch of like sneaky stuff. And like you can see the how it's going, because it's like the how it's done is not a secret. It's the like how he's going to pull it off in a sense is kind of what it builds up to. It's just the build up takes a little too long in my opinion. And like all the memory sections are of Hapleaf, and like how he's kind of like gets to the point that he is and like setting up his like all of his deception and work, and like how much effort gets put into the plan that he puts into place. And I get that. And the eventual plan is pretty cool. What he does to try and spurn the Chiss into a civil war, which nearly happens, though thanks to Thrawn Arlani and then the newcomer to the story, Captain, at that point, actually, Lakinda, Zodlak and Daro, I believe is her full name, part of the Zodlak family, one of the 40. But Lakinda's great. She's also a really fun character, but she helps foil the plans eventually. Spoilers, but not really spoilers. It's like, yeah, it shouldn't be surprising that Thrawn wins in like all of these, and like the Ascendancy is fine because this is a prequel story. But it's greater good. It's just a little too slow and a little too plotting at points. Not enough of Thrawn and the others. A little too much of Hapleaf trying to sow a conspiracy in like the Chiss equivalent of like rural Arkansas, essentially, is what the best way I can describe it. It's not bad. It's just a little too slow, in my opinion. It picks up a little bit more in Lesser Evil, even with the length, because there's definitely more of those like conspiracies to bring down the Chiss from like manipulating them, but the manipulations are a bit more grander, and more entertaining as well. And honestly, like the segments with Thrawn, like I think are the weakest from a good chunk of Lesser Evil compared to the other two. Like I don't know. He's the stuff that he does in Lesser Evil, when he's not like owning everyone in a military situation, it was fine, but it wasn't like the most interesting compared to the first two books. But I think it's made up for everything else that goes on in Lesser Evil, because I think it's built up well. I think the climax could have been a little better. It was like at points it did feel a little anticlimactic. And Senior Captain Thrawn's Last Stand, which is the unofficial name coined by Arlani, I might add, in her attempt at levity when they're planning out their big surprise, and their big trap, essentially. But it's the actual like action there is cool, and the setup is also good. It's just that the ending, I'd say, is a little too anticlimactic, or it's a little rushed almost. I think like there could have been a little bit more to it than what winds up happening, which is a little disappointing. But it's still, I like overall the execution was solid there. And like everything that gets built up to it is good. It's just, I think that Thrawn, I think, is the weakest in the present day sections in Lesser Evil compared to the first two. Though I think it's made up for it in the flashback parts in Lesser Evil, since the memory sections there, we finally get to see Thras for the first time. And so for those who don't know, so Thras, aka Mithrasophis, it was a character who was introduced in Outbound Flight, I believe. Might have also been in Survivor's Quest, I don't know, but in that duology there, where he was in Legends, at least, he was Thrawn's brother, who dies in the events of Outbound Flight. And I don't know how much we see of Thras in there, but he gets brought back up, like he gets name dropped in, I think, both the first two books, but I know he definitely gets name dropped in Chaos Rising, but we don't see him because he had died shortly before the present day events of Chaos Rising. Not through any fault of like Thrawn's or anything like that. It was just, we don't really get to see too much of it. I think it's like he goes to lesser space, finds a Jedi, and winds up crashing a ship with her to like save some others with it. So it's like taking some of the plot points from his death in Outbound Flight, since I think he was the one who crashed the Outbound Flight, like the remnants of that ship itself, with one of the Jedi there, and that like the survivors from the outbound flight, or at least like part of it, like one of the like split off sections of it, form a colony that becomes the like the central plot point of Survivor's Quest, because Luke and Mara find it like 40 plus years in the future. And anyway, in these ones though, the canon books, in Lesser Evil, this is the book that I'm on, the one that has Thras, we get to see a lot more of Thras himself and his dynamic with Thrawn, where they're not actually brothers though. Like they can, since Thrawn gets adopted into the Myth family, Thras basically becomes his friend, and then eventually grows to consider Thrawn his brother. Their dynamic is awesome. Thras was a really fun. I was surprised how much I enjoyed Thras's sections in Lesser Evil. He was just a joy to listen to. I want to be Thras's friend. He just seems like a very nice guy to be around. And it's a shame that it was a foregone tragedy what was going to happen to Thras, but it's still a shame nonetheless what happened. And he was like one of the big connections that Thrawn had in the Chiss Ascendancy itself. So like Thrawn losing Thras was a really big deal for him. And both in terms of his connection to the Chiss and also just like him personally losing Thras, like really haunts him. Even if he doesn't show it all that much, it's clear that like Thras's death like really stings. Even that Thrawn had no control over it, it still hurts him. But it all those sections and like the eventual conspiracy that they kind of uncover, Thrawn and Thras together working with the Stybla family, which is another one of the 40, the Spanish family essentially, because that's what Mark Thompson, the audiobook narrator, gave them all Spanish accents, and I kind of love it. I really like the way he talks for the Stybla family. They're great, and it's kind of funny how he like gives different accents to like various different families. But yeah, it's cool. Like I think the Arizi family, he gives kind of like Germanic accents is the best way I can describe it. The Zodlak family are all like just kind of country rural accents. I'm trying to think of like others that they did, because like whenever they do the like council meetings, pretty much you can hear some of the other accents, but I forget exactly. But it's cool because it like expands the fact that the Chiss are pretty like, or gives more diversity to Chiss society, where they're not just like all talking with British accents, and they're not all speaking like Thrawn. They are all very different. That does bring me back to Lakinda. Just to briefly touch on her, because I'm going to try and wind this down pretty soon, because I've already almost made it to 50 minutes somehow. But Lakinda so she's a member of the Zodlai family. So she's kind of like basically from the country, but she winds up becoming an officer, and a competent officer. She's good. She's like pretty similar to Arlani. She's not a huge fan of Thrawn because she kind of views him through like family politics and whatnot. And like since the Zodlak are allies of the Arizi, and the Arizi don't like the Myth, she therefore does not like the Myth. So it takes her a bit to warm up to Thrawn, because she eventually realizes that Thrawn just could care absolutely less about Thrawn just does not care at all about family politics in the Chiss Ascendancy. It's like he's working for the military. Family politics do not apply. Families do not apply pretty much. And it takes Lakinda, it takes Samacro as well a while to realize Thrawn just does not give a crap, does not give a damn, does not give a shit, whatever you want to say, about the family politics at all. And eventually Lakinda warms up to him, in the sense that she's willing to follow his lead. And eventually she winds up becoming a member of the Arizi family as well in book 3. That's why I kind of hesitated initially when I introduced her, but because she eventually goes from Lakinda to Zayenda in book 3, and Zayenda is same character, but she's very fun, and her, Arlani, and Thrawn together are a great trio of officers. Also out on Samacro, it's the officers are, Timothy Zahn does a good job of making the Chiss military enjoyable to experience, essentially, from a audience perspective, seeing how they operate, seeing how they deal with the family politics, even if they might not always be benevolent. They're because Thrawn is in like he's introduced as a villain in Heir to the Empire trilogy, becomes kind of gradually turns into an anti-villain in over the course of Legends. And when he gets reintroduced in canon, he's obviously introduced as a villain in Rebels, and stays a villain in Ahsoka. But in both in the trilogy, the Imperial trilogy, he is the protagonist, obviously, and he is again kind of an anti-villain where he's serving the Empire, which is a very bad thing. The Empire is terrible, and Thrawn is willing to willing to serve, and not like he's serving the wrong side pretty much, and is completely complicit in that. But he's not he's not Darth Vader, he's not Tarkin, he's not a mustache twirling villain. He has honor to him. He's an anti-villain there, and this one even more so. Like he's not even a villain really in this one, because he's not really evil. He's at best really an anti-hero in this one, more so because we know what he's willing to do. But in this one, it's like the good guys, quote unquote, are the Chiss. It's more they're the decent guys enough. They're the least bad we see, because they're not going out and like killing a bunch of people, but they're also like not exactly basically everyone else in the chaos just doesn't really like the Chiss. They just kind of think they're really pretentious, pretty much. Like one of the other characters that I haven't really mentioned, but Kilori of Wandualon. He's a navigator who's like this alien navigator who like also has a connection to the Force in a sense, and just kind of finds himself in the middle of everything all the time. He's a fun character, but he's like he does not have a high opinion of the Chiss. It also doesn't help that Thrawn like kind of Thrawn kind of strings him along a lot at various points. So Kilori doesn't exactly have a high opinion of Thrawn, but he's also like very much respects Thrawn's abilities, and is like basically every time he winds up like going to someone who is against Thrawn, like where Kilori is kind of like partially working for whether it be General Yiv or Jixtus or really anyone else who's like trying to take down the Chiss. Kilori, who's like just kind of there being hired on, and he's like, yeah, do not mess with Thrawn. This guy will wreck your he will destroy you. He will wreck your shit. And everyone's like basically everyone who's like hears it is like, I don't exactly believe you, but all right. And then they go and face Thrawn, and it's like, dang, Thrawn's got hands. And it's just really funny because Kilori is like, every time he's these my brain is falling apart because it's 2:20 in the morning and I'm very tired now. This is why you shouldn't record so late. But yeah, like every time Kilori shows up and Thrawn's like just randomly pops out of nowhere, he's like, oh, come on, man, why is he here? And then everyone, like the guy he's working with is like, why are you so why are you so panicked about a Chiss? The Chiss are super arrogant and whatnot. We can deal with them. And Kilori is just like, yeah, no, you can't. You just no. I'm gonna be real with you, Chief. No. And then no one listens to him, like truly listens to him, and then it all goes wrong for them. It's great. It's great. I love a good story where it just like hypes up a character and then backs it up, and Thrawn gets hyped up a lot in this and backs it up every time. I don't know what else I can really say about the Ascendancy Trilogy. It's just fun. If you like the story, if you like Thrawn as a character, you're going to like these stories because it's just Thrawn doing Thrawn things, and get a good look at where he came from and the Chiss and all that, and some good, really good supporting cast and whatnot. Even if I think a lot of the plot and the stuff that the villains are doing, like their villainous plots aren't always resolved the best. And the pacing does have issues. I think honestly in all three of these, the pacing can be rough at some points, especially in book 2. But the character moments are great, and the hype moments are there as well. So if you like Timothy Zahn's style, you're gonna like these books. It's got a lot of Timothy Zahn isms, pretty much. So I think pretty much exactly what you'd expect from these type of books, from Zahn and Star Wars as a whole. And if you like those, I would highly recommend them. If you're curious about what Thrawn is like, I would recommend these as well. I don't know if I'd read these first. I might. I mean, I'd go if you're just getting into Star Wars and looking to read something, go with the Heir to the Empire trilogy. That I think should be the basis for anyone. Even if they are legend stories, it's still it's the set of legend stories in my opinion. And Heir to the Empire is the quintessential Legends trilogy, and everything else after that comes secondary, pretty much. It just kind of adds on to the world, the expanded universe, you could say, set up by the Heir to the Empire trilogy. But these are solid as well. Out and beyond a galaxy far, far away. One thing I meant to mention this when I started it, but it's one thing that I love when Zahn starts out all three of these. It's instead of a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, since it takes place in the unknown regions and the chaos and all that, which is a little bit further out than the usual galaxy. Not exactly on most maps. It is a long time ago beyond a galaxy far, far away, which it's a little touch to it, and I like that. It's just a little bit of added flavor to the usual opening crawl of Star Wars, which is just a fantastic opening crawl nonetheless. Like a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, it's like, what a great start to just any story. It's like, all right, I'm up on the edge of my seat now. This is going to be fun. And then you get the opening crawls and whatnot. I'm going to just stop now because I am full on into ramble mode. So I'm almost like trying to pad the runtime to get to an even hour, but I will not do that. I'm going to stop right here. Somehow I managed to reach a near hour doing this. I have no idea how. But yeah, that will wrap this episode up. I love Star Wars, man. It's great. I love talking about Star Wars. I might do another Star Wars episode sometime soon. I have no idea what to talk about, but it's fun. I like it. I might even do, once I finish the Revenge of the Sith novelization, I might just talk about that and Revenge of the Sith as a whole, and maybe the prequel trilogy, because I'm someone who grew up on the prequel trilogy. I was born in that era. I don't know if the first movie, I actually don't know which of the first, or what of the Star Wars movies I saw first. I definitely saw them when I was very young. Might have even been episode 4, because my dad was a big original trilogy guy. Huge Obi-Wan fan. It's something I've come to really enjoy about my dad now, much later, now that I've grown up more and kind of had to look back on what's happened, is like how much of a giant nerd he was at some points, because he was a lawyer. He was very much deep into politics and whatnot, lawyer for over 40 years. So he like like big into sports as well. Not a guy you'd think to be, nerdy at all. Like stereotypically nerdy. And he wasn't, like a stereotypical nerd at all, but he had that like nerdy side to, or like geeky side to him. Like he was a big original Trekkie. Loved Star Trek. Love Star Wars as well. Was a huge Obi-Wan fan. And I mean, besides that, I mean, I don't think there was too much. I think probably more. I don't know, but yeah, like he do love Star Trek, the original one. Big Captain Kirk fan. Pretty big Next Generation fan from what I remember as well. Like I remember he always had one of the Borg cubes on his desk. And I would always be like, why do you have a cube on your desk, Daddy? And he was like, it's the Borg. And I was like, oh, what's the Borg? And he'd tell me about it, and I was too young to understand what the Borg was. But I know what it is now. The Borg is cool. Maybe I'll do an episode on Star Trek. But yeah, he's like, he always had a picture of Sir Alec Guinness as Obi-Wan. I should be ending off here, but it's getting nostalgic, getting a little wistful. And yeah, I mean, he was honestly, he was my introduction to Star Wars, because he loved quoting Star Wars as well. I firmly remember every time we watched Attack of the Clones, every time the Dexter Jester scene popped up on when Obi-Wan's going into Dex's diner, and the pocketbook line. I forget exactly how it goes, but he would quote that to me all the time. So I'm a huge big fan of Dexter Jettster. I have a huge soft spot for Dexter Jettster because of my dad. And so I think I'm kind of willing myself into talking about the prequel trilogy when I wind up finishing the novelization, which should be pretty soon. I might have it done by next Saturday to record that episode. We'll see. I might have to add a little bit more time to my usual allotted time because I'm a little past halfway. I think I've gotten through like 7 hours. I have like 6 hours to go. But we'll see what happens. But I think I'll do that because I am a big fan of the prequel trilogy. I'm a big fan of Star Wars as a whole. Actually, I managed to pad it to over an hour. That's funny. But anyway, yeah, I think I'll do that. I will stop reminiscing for now. Stop wasting your time. Yeah, that'll do it. So next episode will be Tuesday night, Wednesday morning for my baseball. Next Saturday will probably be me rambling about the prequel trilogy and the Revenge of the Sith novelization for then. So yeah, that will do it. Thank you very much for listening.